I'm here with Paul Roome, who will give us a hands-on overview of the value of Databricks' Unity Catalog for data and AI initiatives. Paul, what is Unity Catalog and what does it mean for organizations wanting to make the most of their data?
Yeah, Josh, for sure. So everything starts with a good origin story, right? So I wanted to dial back the time, 5, 6 years ago, what we were thinking when we were first thinking about Unity Catalog. And really, we saw two big trends happening in the industry. Okay, so trend number one was that everyone wanted to use more data, but they were scared about it, right? There was increasing regulations. There was GDPR that had happened. There was CCPA. There's all of these AI acts that were coming up, right? So everyone wanted to use more data, but was scared about how to protect their data. And they couldn't answer simple questions such as, who has access to which data? What data do I even have in my organization? The second trend that we saw was this kind of more technology-based trend, right? We saw this move towards a lakehouse architecture. So folks were getting away from data lakes and data warehouses. They were moving to this architecture where we had a single copy of our data, and then all of our different data personas accessing that single copy, okay? So trend one told us we needed to invest in data governance, and trend two told us that we needed to do it in a different way because the fundamentals of the system and the architecture had changed, okay? So this is where Unity Catalog was born, and we had the premise, we had the mission. We wanted a single platform, a single governance platform, which was capable of securing and governing both data and AI assets. So that was from the outset was the mission of Unity Catalog. So I wanted to start with kind of a demo of how that shook out, just the really basics of the system, like the first things that we launched, right? So I come into my Databricks system here, and I can navigate over to the Catalog Explorer, and I favorited some stuff for us to look at today. I wanted to start by just looking at this one catalog here. It's called Marketing Prod. It's where I store some of my marketing data. And I'm going to open this schema called Analytics. And you can see I've got a bunch of different asset types in here. Okay, so I've got tables. This describes, tabular data, as well as things like metric views and business semantics. I have volumes. This is my unstructured data, right? So I can store images, CSVs, zip files. I can even put videos in there, right? And view my videos as well. Like, you can get a little preview of all these things. So that's the unstructured data. I can put in my functions and my tooling, right? So this can act as my tools that my agents are going to call in the AI world. And I can put my actual models and AI agents in the catalog itself as well. So going back to that original premise, we wanted a single catalog for all data and AI assets. And this is the first kind of manifestation of that vision, which was a single catalog with these different asset types. And then, we started to build stuff upon here. So one of the big questions in governance is about like data access control. Who can access which of these data assets? And, so you can come into your catalog here. You can click this grant modal, and you can decide, I want my field team to have data reader access to all of the things that are in this catalog, okay? And I can confirm that. And that means that across all of these different asset types, I've just granted some permissions, right? Both the tabular data, the unstructured data, and, all of the AI tools and models as well, right? So it's this single framework to govern access to all of these different data and AI assets. So that was the first manifestation of Unity Catalog. Customers received this really well, but we kept on getting the same kind of questions, right? I'm moving to the Lakehouse, but I still have data sprawled everywhere, right? Maybe I have, application databases, Postgres, MySQL, SQL servers, etc. Or maybe I have some legacy data warehouses already in play as well. And I just want to get access to that data before, maybe I centralize in my Lakehouse. And so we pioneered this method. We called it Lakehouse Federation. And what this allows you to do was actually to access data in place in those different systems. Okay, so you see some kind of icons on my screen here. So these represent data that's not actually in, Delta or Iceberg or Parquet format. It's actually sitting in these different systems. So this data sitting in AWS Glue or, or SQL Server or Postgres or even Snowflake. And what Databricks will do here, and Unity Catalog, it will actually go and crawl this system. It will surface all of the assets back into Unity Catalog, and then I can access, secure, and govern it all in the same way, okay? So I've got an example here. I'm, clicked on a particular table, my supplier inventory table from Snowflake. I'm viewing the sample data here. I can actually go and use, some of my AI tools here, like, and chat to my data, right? I can run this query directly on the data that's actually sitting in a different system itself, okay? So this allows you to get the value out of Unity Catalog and Databricks well ahead of the full migration project that you might need to, do as you're centralizing data into your Lakehouse. And again, all of those governance concepts carry over, so I get a single way to manage permissions, even on these federated sources. So we had many customers adopt all of the features I talked about, and then we just got to have a lot of fun, right? So you've got all of these different asset types, data and AI, federated sources. They're all centrally in your catalog. And then the question becomes, what's the relationship between all of these different asset types, right? And that's really where this concept of lineage comes in. So once you have these assets represented in your catalog, you can start to view the relationship between them. Okay, so here's an example. I clicked on a table here. It's called Taxi Dataset Cleaned. And I can click into my UI here, and I can see exactly where it came from. Well, it came from this other dataset, just called Taxi Dataset. And actually upstream of that is, this API and this Salesforce data as well. So you can see the provenance of how the data was created and by whom. And then you can start to ask questions about, like, how are people using this data, right? Actually, it's used to create a model, version 4 of the model to be precise. And what did someone do with that model? Well, they wrote out an inference table here, and then they're actually visualizing that in a couple of different dashboard technologies as well, okay? So this really, brought together the value of Unity Catalog for a lot of customers, and they really saw it here. Governance for both data and AI assets and visualizing the relationships between them, it brings a lot of value to the organization.
As someone that has dealt with thousands of tables before and thousands of data sources, being able to understand all the relationships very easily is one of the most powerful features I think that Databricks has offered for a few years now.
Definitely a fun one. We have a lot of fun with it. Lots of different ways to use that lineage data in the platform as well to derive intelligence. We use it for all of our search ranking to find the most important tables. So it really is a great source of intelligence for the platform, as well as being just a useful tool to understand how data is flowing.
Want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about some of the features that have recently been released that have been features that customers have been wanting?
We have thousands of customers using Unity Catalog. One of the big themes for us over the past year or so is how do we help those customers actually scale their governance practice, okay? And one of the big tactics and pieces of technology that we've invested in is something called attribute-based access control, okay? And what this, the central premise of this is you might have millions of tables in your Lakehouse, okay? Some of them might have sensitive data in them, might have names, addresses, emails, PII, right? And you want to make sure that, only the people who really need to see that data see it, because otherwise you're exposing yourself to unnecessary risk. And so attribute-based access control is a technology that really helps us to solve this. So let me just give you a quick overview of how that works. So I'm going to go back into my Catalog Explorer here, and I'm going to click on a particular table called Customers. And you can see here that, as you might expect, I've got some customer names in here, but we certainly don't want everyone in the organization to be able to see these customer names. Why would they? Only the people who need to see this should see it. And so I'm going to talk about the process you can use to kind of lock this down. Okay. So the first step here is to derive your tagging structure and think about how you want to tag this data, right? Because that allows us to apply some semantic meanings to these columns. So you can get your data stewards to do this, or we also have AI tooling that will automatically do this. But I'm just going to demonstrate on this one-off basis to do this. So I'm going to apply this tag called my name tag to this column called name. This is going to tell the system that this is actually represents a human name in real life. And now all I need to do is go and author what we call a policy to tell the system what to do when it encounters this tag. So let me create a column masking policy. I'm going to apply this to all of my account users. I'm going to choose to mask my column data. And I'm going to do that when that tag shows up, so my name tag here. And then I'm going to just use something simple here. I'm going to just mask with asterisk values. I could do something more fancy. I could, ask my genie to actually craft me a more complex policy here. But I'm just going to go with the most basic thing here. And let's go ahead and create that policy. And now when I navigate back to my table and go and view the sample data, I should be able to see that my first names have now been masked out with asterisks, as you see here. Okay, so we've turned that plain text names into asterisks, and I could do this in a conditional way. So I could say that a certain group of people who need to see this data can see it in plain text, and everyone else sees it in this scrambled way. And the real value here is that this allows you to write one policy that governs thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of data sets. And then all I need to do is rely on either my AIs or my data stewards to go ahead and tag my data in the correct way. So here's another table that has, customer names in it. And, as soon as I tag that and click over to my sample data as well, I should be able to see that this data is appropriately masked as well. So it becomes this force multiplier for your governance practice. Your governance team can worry about the rules and the policies. Your data stewards, armed with their AI assistants, can go and just tag the data and keep everyone protected and secure and compliant.
Now, tell us about what's next.
So we're really excited about this. We've been spending a lot of time in this catalog explorer here. This is awesome. You can see all of the data you have access to. You can see the lineage. You can run search queries, all of this kind of good stuff. But sometimes, like in life, the same in your data platform, you don't know what you're searching for, okay? And so that's why we're investing in this new product surface. It's called Discover. And really the mission of Discover is to help you find the good stuff in your Databricks account, okay? And I'll describe what you see on the screen and some of the concepts by which we help you surface that good stuff. So we have a page here. We can see various assets here. So we have tables, we have dashboards, we have Genie spaces, metric views, all of my data and AI assets. And we surface assets here in a couple of different ways. The first, you'll see some visual bling here. We've got this little blue check mark. This tells me that the data's been certified. So in this case, a data steward has actually assigned the highest rating in your organization to this data. They've said that this meets my organizational standards. It's got high data quality. The metadata is great. I'm going to certify this. This gives us a lot of signal to trust that this data should be, prominently displayed in your Discover page. But the second thing we do is actually we look at all of the queries that are going on in the system. Who's querying this data? How many times? What's the data quality? What's the lineage? And we use that to also boost, other assets onto this page as well. The other big concept here, how we're helping you to find the data that you need, is by helping you and allowing you to infuse your business semantics into this data. So, when you're browsing Netflix, you maybe you're in the mood for an action or a comedy, right? You would click into those genres, right? And browse your movies via those genres. You wouldn't go and browse by the movie studio, right? In the same way, in the data world, we don't want to browse by the system that created the data. Often we want to browse by the business area that the data is pertaining to, okay? So this is really the purpose of this other section here, which is browsing your data by domain. So I've created 4 different domains here: customer usage, engineering, financial, data, and IT. And then we're able to actually tag data into this customer usage domain in a similar way. We can certify this data, and then Databricks can actually suggest assets that go into here based on various heuristics. So by these different concepts and a bunch of stuff that's coming that I'm really excited about, we should be talking about in upcoming conferences, we allow you to surface this page of highly valuable data to your end users so they can find the data that they need to perform their job functions. Maybe there's people who, everyone wants to use data in their job. They might not know how to build the data, but there's lots of really great consumable assets that may have been created in their organization already. And this is the way to put those in front of those users, right? So, whether it's exposing them to your highest quality dashboards here, or allowing them to actually chat with your data through things like Genie Spaces as well, right? You can surface all of these into the page so that they don't have to filter and sift through the millions of tables you have, and they're just exposed to the really high quality stuff that helps them to get value quickly.